Now, please welcome Gil Penalosa.
Thank you. You know, a few weeks ago, it was celebrated when men went on the moon. President Kennedy thought that it was very important. So he said that was his vision. It was really big, bold. And the first time he went to NASA was 1961. And when he went to NASA, he was telling people, hello, I'm President Kennedy, what is your name and what do you do? And people would say, I'm a nuclear scientist, I'm an engineer, I'm whatever. And then he ran into this guy and he said, I'm President Kennedy, what is your name and what do you do? And he said, Mr. President, my name is Mike, and I'm helping you put a man on the moon. I'm helping you put a man on the moon. That was critical. Imagine, by the way, that was the first time we saw images of Earth taken by man. And it was just so amazing that maybe we should have seen 50 years ago how fragile our planet is, and how small it is, and how everybody really is totally interwoven into everybody, so that now we should not be having such issues of climate change. Maybe it's important that when people ask you, what do you do? I hope that many of you are saying, I'm creating a Grand Rapids that is vibrant and healthier, where all people can live happier. That is the key element. When this afternoon, when I'm talking to you, I want you to think, how do we want to live? Because if we have an agreement on how do we want to live, then a lot of the decisions become really simple. I have just a request for if you could turn off that light, that would be really nice, because then they would have much better quality of the screen. That light up there. Okay. Think about this for a minute. Half of the homes that will be around in 40 years do not exist today. Half. Now, today, living in cities, we got about 3.5 billion people. Within the lifetime of our children, our students, we're going to go to 7 billion people. And it could be very nice and very civilized. And of course, we need to densify. We cannot continue sprawling, because if we sprawl, then nothing is going to work. And there are many ways to densify. People are really against the 40-story buildings, but we don't have to have 40-story buildings. We can have the same density with 6-story buildings next to each other than with 40-story buildings. So it can be so much nicer. The US, the population is going to go by around 120 million people over the next 40 years. Here, Kent County is going to go to 835,000 people. That's going to grow about 40%. It's huge. But think of it as an opportunity, but also as a huge responsibility, because whatever we do or don't do is how people are going to live for the next 40 years. Julio, can they turn off that light?
Yeah. I got it. No, I got it. I know where the lights are.
Thank you. So I want you to think for a minute. If this is what's going to happen, if Kent County is going to grow by 40%, if the world population living in cities is going to grow, it's going to double in the next 40 years. Then let's see what we have done in the last 40. Because if what we've been doing is good, okay, let's just do more of the same. Unfortunately, this is what we've been doing in the last 40 years. It's been horrible. We've been thinking that taking housing is an issue of supply and demand, when obviously it's not an issue of supply and demand. The land is fixed. It doesn't matter how much demand there is, there's not going to be more supply. So all over the world, we've been sending the poor people to the worst places where there's no mobility and there is no jobs and there is not a good education. Even in the US, the wealthiest country in the world. Look at this. This is the difference between life expectancy. These are just 3 cities, but if you go to almost any city in the US, it's the same. By postal code, by zip code. The zip codes that are in dark red, the life expectancy is 60. The zip codes with light pink is 90. 90. I don't know what is worse, that this is happening or that people think that this is normal. Can you imagine if you are born in one part of the city, your life expectancy is going to be 60? And if by luck or whatever, you are born 10 minutes away in another zip code, your life expectancy is going to be 90. 50% more. So we've been focusing on cars, and not on people's happiness. And this is the kind of cities that we have been doing. This is how we've been trying to solve mobility. And we haven't even solved mobility anywhere with these billions and billions of dollars. Unfortunately, the emerging countries like China, Russia, and Brazil are doing exactly the same things. This is Florence, Italy, and one highway intersection at the same scale. It seems like we learn how to do cities, and then we unlearn, we forgot. You know, the cities, they don't decide the what. That's more at the national level. People can move from one city to another, but cities do decide the how. This is how we've been building cities. No trees, parks. Instead of parks, we've been doing parkings for cars. Imagine a child, an elderly person, a person with disabilities. They become kind of like a slave to someone with a car just to go for an ice cream. So the last 40 years have not been good, clearly. We got to improve the cities that we have today, and we got to create great cities for many, many people. But we're going to have to do it radically different. Let's put it into context, the cities. I mean, it doesn't matter if the city is 2,000 people, or the city is 500,000, or the city is 10 million. Don't worry, I'm going to be showing examples of cities that are much bigger than Grand Rapids, others much smaller. Some are wealthier, some are poorer, but it doesn't matter because it's similar issues. The solution is different. So I want you to keep an open mind instead of saying, oh, I'm not like New York, or I'm not like Bogota, or I'm not like Copenhagen. No. For example, putting into context, we're going through a public health crisis everywhere. Physical, mental, emotional, the population is growing. Climate change, we see the symptoms everywhere. Even if some people don't want to believe in them. And cities play a huge role. This is Chicago, this is downtown Chicago. And look, as the cities sprawl, the impact on climate change is huge. That's why we need to densify. That's why the downtown Grand Rapids have to be denser. We're living longer. And not only Grand Rapids, everywhere. Think of this. People have been around for 200,000 years. In the last 200 years, if 200 years ago, this is the life expectancy, all of these are the countries in the world, we didn't have any country with a life expectancy above 45. So many of us will be dead by now, and the others close. Now, there is no country that has a life expectancy below 45, not even the poorest countries in Africa. It's amazing what has happened. People are living so much longer. Today we got about 960 million people over 60. In 30 years, we're going to have over 2 billion. So cities, let's think about how do we want to live. We need to recreate cities. And when we recreate cities for people, there are some ingredients. It's like if you're going to do a pasta, you boil water, you put on the pasta. If it's only water, it's going to be a spiceless pasta. People don't like spiceless pasta. So let's get some nice ingredients, or people are going to go somewhere else. We get the ingredients, we do that pasta, and it's much better. Same things happen with cities. Cities have some ingredients like walking and cycling and parks. Those are the spices. People love to live in a spice city, not in a spiceless city. Let me give you an example. What is one or the other? This is not about money. This building costs a lot of money. You've never been to this city, you go for the first. Are you going to try to meet friends in this street? That's spiceless. Instead, this is spiced. You get the feeling? Some churches, religious areas, have a parking that is used for a few hours a week. Others are used 24/7. It's not about money. This park costs a lot of money. What do you do here? Nothing. You come, take some photos, you never go back. There is nothing to do. This park costs a little bit of money, and you come over and over because each time is going to be different. So at the end of the day, is how do you want Grand Rapids to become? By the way, do you still have a good view, or I'm on your way? No? Okay. You know, when I'm talking about sustainable mobility, sometimes when I talk about walking and cycling, people think it's a joke. No, walking and cycling is not a joke. This could be Grand Rapids. You know, it's not a frivolity. This girl knows it. It's you know, walking and cycling is the only individual mode of mobility for most people. For all children and youth, you might be the son or the daughter of the divorced family. If you are under 16, your only individual mode of mobility is to walk and to bike. So it should be almost like a human right to do it safe and enjoyable. Unless you think that only the people that have the money and the age and the desire to have a car have a right to individual mobility. That's why we're also talking about democracy and human rights and equality and sustainability, because everything is really linked to everything. So how do we want to live? That's why I want to have some reflections. And I want to thank the Latino Community Coalition as well as the Downtown Grand Rapids for inviting me. And yesterday we had a great session. Of course, I'm not an expert in Grand Rapids. This is just the second time that I come. Yesterday we had a great view. We went down on a kayak down through the river. Wonderful view. Also, we walked and we used many modes. So I want to give you 8 messages. First one, it's not about the money. When people say, oh, we don't have the money for parks, we don't have the money for walking, usually it's because they don't want to do it. And then you see that 3 blocks later, they are widening a road or they are doing a flyover. You know. Now I advise many cities, but before I was doing. Now I live in Canada. Before I was in Colombia in charge of parks and ciclovia and other things. For example, we built over 200 parks in one term. And then we designed others. In the following term, one of my brothers became mayor and did another 600. In 2 terms, we designed from scratch and built over 800 parks. All over the city. Small ones, big ones. This was one of them. The Pope came here, gave a mass for 1 million people, and then the Pope left. And then nothing happened in 27 years. Why nothing happened in 27 years? Because change is hard. Change is hard in Grand Rapids or in Bogota or in Copenhagen, in Paris, anywhere in the world. Change is hard. Because you try to change here in Grand Rapids and the cave people show up. You know them, I'm sure you have seen them around. They are the citizens against virtually everything. That's why we need you not to take no for an answer. Don't take no for an answer. You gotta find solutions to the problems, not find problems to the solutions. So it was like this for 27 years, and then in 4 years we turned it into the nicest park. For active, for passive, for contemplative recreation, for things that people can do at their own pace, at their own time. And it's not just about soccer fields, it's also about having places to sit and watch the birds. But the uses and the activities is something that is absolutely critical, and the water is kind of magical, and you got this magnificent river in Grand Rapids. So these are some of the things that we were doing, and I thought it was great. But it's not only about having one big park. No, it's about having hundreds and hundreds of small ones. I remember people were saying, Gil, why are you doing so many parks in the poor areas when the poor people have so many needs? I say, yeah, you know, if you really have so much concern for the poor people, when the poor people really feel miserable, it's in the leisure time. When people are working, you know, the president of Amway or the minimum wage worker that cleans the floors have a similar experience. Maybe even the CEO of Amway has more stress and more anxiety. But when the leisure time comes, on the weekend, the CEO of Amway has country clubs and cottages and restaurants and theaters and movies and travels. The minimum wage worker doesn't. So if we improve the way the low income use the leisure time, we're really improving quality of life. That's why it's so critical. I also found a small program of a few miles and few thousand people called Ciclovia, and we turned it into the world's largest pop-up park. It's amazing. You pop it up. How do you do it? It's really simple. Open streets to close streets to cars, open to people, and the magic happens. Young, old, rich, poor, all of these are the income levels. I was obsessed to connect the wealthiest people with the poorest people in the city. By the way, why am I showing some images of Bogota? Bogota obviously is not ideal. It's far behind Grand Rapids. But what I'm showing is because it has only a fraction of the budget that Grand Rapids has. So if an emerging city is doing some of these changes, you could easily do it. It's not a financial issue. And this is something that is really, really great. Anybody can do it. We do 75 miles every Sunday and holiday of the year. And if you don't want to walk or bike or skate along the road, we also do aerobics and Tai Chi and Cha-Cha-Cha. But everything, the common denominator is physical activity. Physical activity. And we get 1 out of 4 citizens come out every Sunday. And the nice thing is that it changes minds. All of a sudden it reminds people that the streets are public space. They belong to all of us, and they can have different uses according to the time of the day of the week of the year. The City of Angels and Cars now is doing it monthly, and Mayor Garcetti wants to do it weekly. And New York and Portland and others. It's about social integration. I've seen cities of 10,000 and 50,000, 100,000, 20 million like Mexico City. It works in any city of any size. It would be fantastic if you would do it maybe from May to September, May to October. I mean, why don't you do it next year? Monthly. The first Sunday of every month from May to October. What is the risk? Nothing. You are not doing arenas, you're not doing gymnasiums. It's just opening streets to people, closing to cars. If at the end of 2020 it doesn't work, okay, then you don't do it in 2021. But if it has worked, then in 2021 you do it weekly so that you get all of the benefits. Also, it's great because we meet each other as equals, and that is something that is really important. It has become like a positive virus. Now we got over 300 cities doing it. And also in Bogota, 280 kilometers. So it's like 175 miles of protected bikeways in 3 years. I went from a few thousand to 500,000 riding, always separating pedestrians and cyclists, and making connectivity, which is very important. If you don't have connectivity, it doesn't click. Some of the neighborhoods were so poor that it's almost impossible for you to imagine in Grand Rapids. Look at the levels of poverty. Why do we need really good quality sidewalks and bikeways? Part of it is because it's going to be safer, but just as important is it because we need to dignify the people that walk. We need to dignify the people that ride bikes. And that's why the quality is so important in everything that we do. And when I'm speaking this afternoon about people walking, I'm talking about anybody that walks, that is moving at the speed of the pedestrian. By the way, the cyclist, there are many ways to separate cyclists from cars. A painted line doesn't make it. You gotta have a physical. Yeah, a painted line is same as nothing. And I'll show you some examples in a minute. You gotta have some separation. If you don't have a physical separation, it's not gonna click. These are the bikeways in Bogota, and there are many ways. So there is not just one way. Whatever you try, but don't mix. Bogota now has over 350 miles, 850,000 people daily. 200,000 of them are women. Obviously, it's not perfectly safe. If it was safe, we would have 50-50. And that's when I was saying that when I say walking, is anybody moving at that speed. When my brother was mayor, now he's mayor again 3 years ago. The first time he was talking about BRT, and people said, what, BRT? It's like a subway but above ground? This is how system was. First line, from nothing to implementation, 36 months, including buying up hundreds of property, thousands, to tear down to make space for sidewalks and bikeways. And BRT, I'm really happy that you are developing a second line of BRT, but the BRT really to move fast. By the way, when you do the BRT, please improve all of the public spaces along. You are doing so much investment that it's not just about that, but you gotta have dedicated lanes. If you don't have dedicated lanes, it's not gonna work anywhere where there is traffic jams. Also, this is about democracy. When I see the US Constitution, first line, I'm not gonna talk about the Second Amendment, the first one. All people are equal. If all people are equal and you got 80 people on a bus, it has to have the right of space of 80 cars with one person. So it has to have dedicated lanes. I mean, for people to use that beautiful bus that is outside, it has to be faster or cheaper or more convenient or all of the above, or else it's not gonna click. Today you got over 90% of the trips in Grand Rapids are on car. That has to go substantially. When we see Greta and all the people talking about climate change, that is about climate change. Second, let's create 880 cities. I've been lucky that I created an NGO called 880 Cities, and also I've been chair of World Urban Parks, and I have worked in more than 350 different cities in every continent, more than 40 cities in the US. And World Urban Parks, I hope that Grand Rapids becomes a member because it's a place to exchange information. Basically, cities around the world that want to have quality urban parks, and then there is certification through Indiana University, and there are conferences. Next month there is one in Argentina, there's also one in Russia. Last year the World Conference was in Australia. We have committees, Children Play and Nature, Green Infrastructure, Healthy Parks, Healthy Cities. If you want any information just to register as a person or as a city, worldurbanparks.org. But everywhere I go, people say, Gil, what is 880 Cities? Can my children walk? Is it safe? Well, 880 Cities is not really about walking or cycling. It's not really about parks or streets or sidewalks. Those are the means, not the end. The end is, how can we have successful cities? You know, and I like to go the day before and look at the venue where I'm going to speak. Maybe I should have come yesterday to see if this was going to work. But thanks to the owner here, did a fantastic job, put up the screen. The other day I was working in Warsaw, and I was going to speak outdoors, so I went to see the plaza, and I see all of these people dancing, and I said, oh my God, how am I going to compete with them? And then I saw the DJ Vika. I told you, we're living longer. She's an entrepreneur. She goes from park to park, from city to city, organizing those dances. So that is the idea. How can we help create successful cities and healthy communities where all people are going to live happier? And everywhere people say, Gil, is this intersection safe? Can I send my children walking to school? Can I send my grandparents on a bike to the park? Can they walk to take public transit? Look, you don't need to be a transportation engineer. We call it the rule of common sense. Unfortunately, common sense seems to be the least common of the senses. 3 rules, 3 steps, really simple. First step, think of an 8-year-old that you love. Can be your son, your daughter, your grandchild, anybody that is around. Look at these people in Grand Rapids. Anyone that is around 8. Once you have that person in mind, go to step number 2. Think of an 80-year-old that you also love. Your parents, your grandparents. And when you have the child and the older adult, then step number 3, would you send them walking across the intersections, walking to take public transit or go to school, or riding their bike to get eggs or milk? Would they feel safe? If they would, it's because it's safe. If they would not, it's because it's not, and we gotta do it better. What if everything that you did in Grand Rapids, everything, the sidewalk, the crosswalk, the library, this building, the schools, the parks, the hotels, everything had to be great for an 8 and an 80. It's not 8 to 80. It's 8 and 80 as an indicator. Because if it's great for the 8 and it's great for the 80, it's going to be great for everybody. From 0 to over 100. We must stop building cities as if everybody was 30-year-old and athletic, and build great cities for all. It's a simple but it's powerful concept on everything you do here. Third message, let's move on sustainable mobility. And when I'm talking about sustainable mobility, I mean walking, riding bicycles, using transit, also kayaking. You know, who came walking today? Anybody came walking? You know, I don't see any cars here or any bicycles. Everybody came walking. Everybody came walking. Every single trip begins and ends walking. We are all pedestrians. We walk to the cars, we walk to public transit, we walk to the bikes, we walk to places. Walking, that's how we were created. Everybody walks. You know, just like the birds fly or the fish swims, people, we walk. And we're so happy. We walk in the winter with the babies. The other day I Googled walking, and look what Google says. It has all of these people, like if to walk you had to dress up in Lululemon. Everybody walks. You don't need to dress up. You can dress up however you want. And we walk and we're so happy because we use all our senses. We are walking and we see the children playing. And we see the youth going to school. We hear the birds singing. We go from a bakery or a coffee shop and we smell the aroma. Parents and children walk. All the adults walk. We walk in the summer. We walk in the winter. But we need to make it safe. Safe. And it's not safe. Yesterday, people driving cars killed 741 people walking. That's more than a person every 2 minutes. You know, a few months ago, 2 planes crashed and everybody died. What did we do? We grounded. All of the 737s around the world are grounded months ago, and they're still grounded, and they can probably continue for a few more months. Well, every single day, people driving killed the equivalent of 5 Boeing 737s. Imagine if one of those planes fell over the US today, and one over Russia, and one Australia, one Brazil, one Japan, whatever. 5 planes crash and everybody dies. Today, and another 5 tomorrow, and another 5 the next day. Imagine the world crisis. That's how many people walking are killed by drivers. They are not accidents, because they can be avoided. They are incidents. That's why we need to have Vision Zero. Vision Zero basically says people are not perfect. Walking or cycling or in cars, people driving. I'm really glad that Grand Rapids, I was just informed that it's a Vision Zero city. But it's very important that you do. It's not just about signing agreements. It's about taking action. Because I'm not talking about Grand Rapids, maybe even about Toronto, where I live. It is about Toronto. If you don't put the money and you don't make the actions, then it's not Vision Zero. It's zero vision. You gotta think about it. For example, Seattle, last year, they lowered the speed to 20 miles an hour in 2,600 miles of streets. All of the Vision Zero cities are lowering the speed everywhere, are creating protected bikeways. Not one bikeway, networks of protected bikeways. Are creating more time in the crosswalks, in the traffic lights. I mean, we're gonna have complete streets, but it's not just a complete street. It's making complete, but making it safe. Last month I was working in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I went on a visit, and I said, wow, you know, nice that you're putting lights on the sidewalks, but not nice that you're putting the post in the middle of the sidewalk. You know, this is a brand new sidewalk. And they say, oh, Gil, but it's on they're following the guidelines. Well, we gotta change the guidelines. Those guidelines are for cars, not for people. Then we went into a neighborhood and saw brand new sidewalk, and look at this, it looks like a roller coaster. Imagine going with a little baby in the carriage, and then again they said, oh, but it's on the guidelines. I said, yeah, I'm not talking about guidelines. I said, look, assume that you broke a leg and you're on a wheelchair. Would you go on the sidewalk or would you go on the street with the wheelchair? The sidewalks must be perfectly flat. The car that is going in and out once a day is the one that has to go up and down, not the pedestrian. That's what we gotta change. Painted line, that doesn't work. And then when there are cars, they got the cyclists protecting the parked cars instead of moving the cars and having the parked cars protecting the cyclists. I mean, if we want to improve walking, we gotta make it a priority, and it's not a priority when we do this. You know, the other day I was in Miami, and I was with the mayor of Miami, and when I showed this, he thought it was really funny. And then I showed this, and he said, Mayor, this is Miami. But no worries, I don't have Grand Rapids like that. I mean, so a priority is not when we allow cars to be on the sidewalks. I mean, we're telling this woman every single day you are a second-class citizen when we don't even do sidewalks in so many places. Or when we allow scooters and others. I mean, where is the priority? I was working in San Antonio earlier this year. They got 3 companies with scooters. Eventually, you're going to get the scooters here. But the scooters should not be on the sidewalks. The mayor said, Gil, what should I do? I said, look, we walk at 3 miles an hour. Anything that moves at more than 3 miles an hour should be on the street, not on the sidewalk. The sidewalk is for people walking. Some people are blind, some people have disabilities, some are children, some are elderly. And we don't want to have those scooters all over the place in the middle of the sidewalks. The scooters need to partner with the cyclists and demand the cities to do networks of protected bikeway. That's where the scooters should be, on the protected bikeway. Maybe you call it slow lanes instead of bike lanes. I mean, there is nothing as important in Grand Rapids as the sidewalks. You know, the sidewalks is where people meet boyfriends and girlfriends, and when you meet your neighbors, and you meet people selling flowers and fruits and vegetables. I mean, that's where we develop a sense of belonging. We go to any city, we leave the bags, and we go out on the sidewalks meeting people. So we should have benches and trees and I mean, the sidewalks are so different from the street. On the street, whether you are on a bicycle, on car, on public transit, you are going from point A to point B. Not on the sidewalks. On the sidewalks, you mingle, you stay. That's why what the downtown corporation is doing here is so critical. You go out for a coffee and you take 45 minutes, 1 hour. You go out, you walk, you sit, you watch people. Then you get the coffee, you sit again. That's what makes life. We use sidewalks in the summertime. We use them in the winter. The children catch Pokemons on the sidewalks. Older people catch buses. This is really critical, the sidewalks. The sidewalks are the life in the cities. So it is so very important. The sidewalks really remind us that walking is much more than walking. When I work in Buenos Aires, I go on the sidewalks and I see people dancing tango. It's quite different. Sidewalks are part of the family of the parks. Maybe they should be managed by parks, not by public works. I mean, we should have here in Grand Rapids, the sidewalks and walking is so important that you should have a 2-word law. In Grand Rapids, considering that walking is good for physical and mental and emotional health, improve the environment, mobility, recreation, economic development. In Grand Rapids, 2-word law. Pedestrians first. Pedestrians. So that anything that you do here, when you're going to do anything with the city and you present a request, first you're going to say, how is the pedestrian going to be affected? Nothing as important as this. I mean, if we're going to improve walkability, we got to lower the speed. All of Grand Rapids should be 20 miles an hour, the residential areas. On the big roads, you can be at 40, 50, 60. In neighborhoods, 20. Not because 20 is plenty sounds nice, but because if you get hit by a car at 20, there is 5% probability of being killed. At 40, it's more than 80%. Also because we need people to walk, and people don't like to walk when the cars are going at 40 or 50. People walk really fast. When the cars are going at 20, people walk slow, they talk to their neighbors, someone is walking their dog, and it's a totally different experience. I mean, when you are going, this is what happens at 15 or 20 miles. You see everything. Also, you can stop and whatever. When you are at 40, it's totally different. You don't see almost anything yet. So that is, it's an issue of life and death. These are not technical issues. This is what Vision Zero is. Vision Zero is saying, okay, all the residential areas are going to go to 20. Not just around the school or around the library, no, everywhere. We know that if we have a small island on a crosswalk, we eliminate half of the incidents. Why are we still doing crosswalk without an island? Vision Zero is putting islands in all the crosswalks. So that if you don't have time to cross in one traffic light, the kids are going to the museum, they don't have time, they wait. And then they cross in the next traffic light. And we're getting older, and the older people are getting killed in intersections, twice as many as the proportion of the population. And now some people say, oh, we should have shared roads. Let's get rid of all the signs and let's have people negotiating. What? People negotiating? That's blah, blah, blah. I don't want him to be negotiating. He might win 99 out of 100 times, but the one time that he loses, he's going to be dead. I don't want to negotiate it. I mean, everything we do, we must do around the most vulnerable people. I mean, when I say sustainable mobility, I said walking, but not only that, riding bicycles, using transit, also new uses of cars. I mean, riding bicycles, imagine Grand Rapids like this, or like this. I mean, you can be, Grand Rapids has so many good things, you gotta build on the good. You can be as good as Copenhagen, why not? What does Copenhagen have that you don't have? They also have a cold winter, a hot summer, but there it rains all year round. But they bike. It rains all the time. They say there's no such thing as bad weather, it's bad clothing. And they go out, they continue to bike. 41 out of 100 trips citywide are done on a bike. In the downtown, 60 out of 100. In Grand Rapids, 1. Why 1? Because there is no infrastructure. People say, oh, we don't have a culture. No, any city without infrastructure, they claim they don't have a culture. And then they do one bikeway, and they say, let's see if people use it. It's like if you are going to do a soccer field, and you do only one goal. And you say, oh no, let's see if people use it. And then people don't play games, and they say, oh, we don't have a soccer culture because no one is playing games. Well, if you don't have a field, you're not going to play games. Same thing happens with cycling. If you don't have a network, if you don't have connectivity, and here they got 41%, and now they want to go to 50%. And men don't need shirts in the summer, and women don't need special shoes. And how do we improve bikeability? Bikeability, you don't improve putting sharrows or putting signs or bike parking or lockers. None of that really is going to increase, or doing maps or racks on the buses, or even getting bike share. That's like getting the saddle before the horse. That makes it nicer for the 1 or 2% cycling, but that doesn't get more people. I mean, think of someone that doesn't bike in Grand Rapids because they are afraid. Might be you, might be your spouse, might be your parents, your children. Would they start biking if you do maps, or if you do bike parking, or if you put signs? No. That makes it nicer only for the 1 or 2% that are cycling. I mean, anything that you do in cycling, if it's not safe for an 80-year-old, it's nothing. It's nothing. Don't even call it a bikeway. It's nothing. Everything you do, always think of them. We gotta think of the children. We gotta think of people that come from countries where cycling is not a culture. We gotta think of the elder people on a tricycle. We gotta think of the children, the older. Go in front of City Hall, and on one side of the street do a protected bikeway. On the other side, do nothing. And have decision makers and media and citizens bike on one side and come back on the other, and then do a survey. Where did they feel more comfortable? So the reality is that the only two things that you must have is, 1, lower the speed in all the neighborhoods, and 2, create a network of protected byways. Because when the speed is 20, you can mix cars with cyclists, but you gotta make sure that there are 20, putting bombs and doing road diets. What is the minimum grid? The minimum grid is AAA. What is AAA? For all ages and abilities. It's not for the 20 to 15 spandex. It's for everyone. And connectivity. Nothing as important as, if you don't connect origins and destinations, people are not going to go. And then think of daytime and nighttime and winter and summer. And if you don't have the decision to make it permanent like these ones, okay, make it temporary. But don't just paint a line, because people are not going to use it. Enhance the painted line with bollards every 10 feet. And it's going to create a world of difference. And then people are going to use it. That's why people bike in Copenhagen, because everywhere, citywide, there is connectivity. All the neighborhoods are slow, and all the arterials have protected bikeways. And of course, we also got to improve public transit. Someone said a civilized city is not the one where the poor have cars, it's the one where the rich use public transit. We got to have those buses with the frequency and the connectivity and all, so that people will use them. And part of it is the buses. Part of it sometimes is also marketing. The mayor of Malmo told me his citizens didn't like buses, so what did he do with the buses? He put a nose, he covered the wheels, and now they look like trains. Maybe that's what we need to do on the 16 that are coming for the BRT. Also, please don't do these horrible things that they do in so many cities in the US. Here I've seen only one. This is horrible. We need to dignify. I've never seen a private car with that. Why do we think that the people in public transit like it? No, it's horrible. by the way, it's not safe. It's not only a lack of dignity, but also it's not safe. Safety, we need from the inside to look outside, but we also need from the outside to look inside. I mean, do sell advertisement, but do it like this. Especially don't sell advertisement to cars on public transit. Because then it's very painful. I mean, we need to have connectivity and frequency. That is the magic. If we don't have connectivity and frequency, it's not going to click. Sometimes people say, oh, but where are we going to have the space? Well, you got plenty of space. Do the mobility math. Do you want to have one of these or 140 of those? One of these or 145 of those? I mean, it's very clear that people walking and cycling and transit takes up a lot less space. And the cars, it's not going to be the end of the car industry, but the way we use cars is changing very, very fast. In the US already, for the young people, the car is no longer a status symbol for most of them. The people 16 through 24 in the last 4 years have purchased fewer cars than in the last 40, have gotten even fewer driver's license. It's more of a status symbol actually is to live to say, I don't have a car, and to live in a walkable neighborhood. Maybe pay higher rent to live in a walkable neighborhood, or get on a backpack and go to Europe or something. And also part of the new uses of cars, we got electric cars, hydrogen cars, even driverless cars. People say, oh, we're going to have driverless cars and now mobility issues are going to be solved. Well, there are many scenarios. They do all of these drawings and they say, oh, with driverless cars, we're not going to have traffic jams. As if the traffic jam was the driver. It's the car, not the driver. If we don't change our behaviors, we're going to have the same traffic jams. So we really need to change. It can be great or horrible. It depends what we do. For example, sprawl. We need to have cities more compact, or else nothing is going to work. But some people might say, oh, I'm not going to be driving, so what do I care if I live 10 minutes further? I'm going to be taking a nap, or I'm going to be reading a book. Are we going to allow people-less car? You come here, you don't find parking, you tell the car to go home and come back in 2 hours? So we need to decide how to do it. 4, let's create parks for people. I'm going to go a little bit faster. Sorry. I mean, great parks. Let's keep in mind that great parks, they're great if people visit, stay, and come back. It's not about if they win awards. Let me show you some symptoms of great parks, but also sidewalks and plazas and squares and anything in the public space. A symptom is good places to sit. This guy needed 5 chairs to be happy. His feet, his Big Mac. Sometimes people see monkey does. Sometimes it's people see, people do. We do sidewalks, we even put benches. Actually, we even put nails for the young people. This guy was so tired he sat on his briefcase while his friend fainted and his wife is sitting on their baby. But when you got nice places to sit, it's kind of magical. Even in the middle of the winter, going out, people don't even sit facing each other. Starts to rain and people won't even move. Another symptom, sociability. If you see people talking to each other, it's a good symptom. Another, diversity. When you see children, you see youth, you see older adults, you see people with disabilities. Another symptom, affection. What affection? We feel at ease. Another symptom, high proportion of women. Women are more selective. If the place is not clean and safe, women are not going to be there. So those are symptoms. But I think the biggest problem in parks in Grand Rapids and in most places in America is management. Management. Cities tend to think that management is synonymous to maintenance. No, it's very different. Management and maintenance might be 20% of management. No more than that. Picking up the garbage, cutting the grass. Of course we got to do that, but we also got to have uses and activities. Grandparents and grandchildren doing the same activities. All of a sudden in Chicago, people walk and run and skate and ride bicycles and read and play chess and have lunch and take a nap and so on. Management is having volunteers, but giving the tools to the volunteers. Management is citizen engagement. Let's ask before, during, and after. What is it that they want? Let's start the citizen engagement with a blank page. Before we draw the first line, that's when the citizens are experts in the what. Management is having human, financial, physical resources. Management is also having good equity throughout the city so that not all things are the same. It's having safe parks, but not like I saw in London, England, that says, beware of the thieves. This is like an invitation to the thieves of the city. You need a lot of police when the parks are empty. You don't need when they are full. That's what we need. We gotta have people in the parks. What is the cheapest way to have safe parks? is having uses and activities. Somehow, I go to cities and it seems easier to find $1 million to do a park than to find thousands to make it work. You say, oh, let's do a move in the park. We don't have budget. Let's do walking groups. We don't have money. No, keep in mind, empty parks have very few benefits. That's why we need to have activities in the park. Management sometimes is invisible, but someone is giving the permit for the flowers, someone is allowing the laughing yoga. So we gotta work on that. Should we have small or large parks in Grand Rapids? Well, unfortunately, we need to have both because they satisfy very different needs. The small neighborhood park is where we meet our neighbors. That is where we develop a sense of belonging. Also solidarity, because when you know people, something is happening, you go out and help. If you don't know anybody, you stay inside. But you are not going to be able to play soccer or baseball in the neighborhood park. So then we got to have medium-sized parks. And you're not going to be able to go canoeing, so you need to have large parks or linear parks like along the river. So we need to have small, medium, large, active recreation, passive recreation, contemplative. I mean, the parks, the uses and activities is critical. Look at this. In the US, we did a research with City Parks Alliance and the RAND Corporation. The people 0 to 18 are 20% of the population, but 38% of the users. The older people, the over 60, also 20% of the population, but only 4%. Why? Because there's almost nothing for older people to do in the parks. And we know what needs to be done. Walking, for example. Walking is absolutely critical. They want to walk. So every single park in Grand Rapids should have walking path. Everybody wants. The parents with the stroller, the older people, the athletes, they want to go and run. The best cost benefit of any facility in any park is the walking path. And of course, we want to walk, but also gardening, knitting, tai chi, dancing, bocce, all these, we got to have those activities. Otherwise, we're not going to have older people, even if they have more time. And of course, we got to have also benches and walking paths. But also, we know game tables, restrooms, drinking fountains. We got to have parks that are great for everybody, for the young, for the old. And some of you might be saying, Gil, but you don't know. Here in Grand Rapids, we have something called winter. Of course, you have winter. I know that you got 20 horrible days. This girl knows it. And also, you might have another 70 that are pretty bad. But you got over 200 days that are nice. You know, one of the problems is that cities, they plan the city around the 20 horrible days. And then they messed up the 365 days. You know, sometimes we do something horrible. I've lived in Toronto for 20 years. They do some things that are kind of like a vacuums that suck the life out of the city. In Toronto, we have an underground path, like 9 miles. And it's horrible. It gets people out. It works only a couple of hours in the morning, couple hours in the evening, Monday through Friday. It doesn't integrate. It segregates. Here, they don't want any young people on skateboards. They don't want poor people. If you are old and you don't have money, they don't want you. Some places, they do it connecting buildings from one building to another, like Minneapolis, where the only life in the building is the one they put on the signs. And I've seen that you guys, you might put all of that. That doesn't integrate, that's segregate. You have winter, so let's do better infrastructure. It's not about not doing infrastructure, it's about better. Let's focus on the 200 nice days. And when we focus on the nice days, even the horrible ones are not gonna be that bad. Sometimes people go out and they bike in the summer. And that's fine. By the way, why is it that it's safe here biking? Because at one level is for the cars, then 3 inches higher for bicycles, then 3 inches higher is for pedestrians. And there is a physical separation. And then you see young and old and rich and poor, and everybody's biking and people are walking, and then it's very safe. And then you're going to say, Gil, yeah, but that's the summer. Okay, same amount of people bike in the winter. It's not a big issue. We used to have a mayor that said, oh, traffic is horrible because of the cyclists. And I said, no, Mayor, maybe in Toronto traffic is horrible because we don't have enough cyclists. Imagine that each one of these cyclists was on a car. What would the traffic, the jam would be like? It's crazy. So even those 20 horrible won't be as bad. Okay, winter, checked. Of course, maybe winter, we need to do more emphasis when we're doing winter. Let's not just put an ice skating. If we do an ice skating, it's nice, but if we put lights, it's better. And if we put music, and if we put hot chocolate, and so on, we are creating places. For example, we gotta tell the media, stop criticizing the winter, because we are brainwashed since we're a little kid. You turn on the TV, the radio, and someone is saying, for 6 months of the year, tomorrow it's gonna be horrible, it's gonna be cold, Bondo Lab. If you don't have to go out, stay inside, stay indoor. A media person, if you don't like the winter, go do the weather in Arizona. Don't do it in Grand Rapids. I mean, do the fast, say tomorrow, whatever. Even when it's going to be a nice day, they say, oh, tomorrow's nice, but 2 weeks from now it's going to be horrible. I said, you don't even know what's it going to be like this afternoon. What are you telling me of 2 weeks? And then, so we got to do nice places. We got to close some streets and have play streets where people will come out and enjoy. The activities are critical. Let's do aerobics and we need to invest even more money. I tell the governments, don't even invest in July and August, because everybody's going to go anyway. Let's invest in the winter time. Look at this, movie nights in the middle of the winter. Look at this river that froze in Winnipeg, and then you see all of these people doing activities and putting colors so that it's not just white and changing. When working in Alaska and Minnesota, look, this is from Minnesota, ice fishing. So there are other things. Also one of the things people don't like about the winter is not only the cold, but how dark it is. So let's put lights all over the place. This is really, really nice. For example, let's have Halloween on October 31st. First week of November, let's put the lights. Let's don't call them Christmas lights. Also because it's not politically correct to say Christmas lights. So let's call them winter lights. And let's have them from November to March. And let's have competitions for people to do. Sometimes the Halloween is only for a couple of weeks, and people do amazing decorations for Halloween. Imagine if people were going to have lights for 4 months of the year, or 5, then people would do amazing lights as well. 5, it's not about copying, but it's about adapting. For example, look, everybody's going to learn from everybody. People can learn from Grand Rapids, and you can learn from others. This friend of mine is a physical education teacher. She saw that fewer and fewer kids were walking to school, so she asked the kids, why don't you walk to school? Because they were afraid of the cars. So when they went home on the holidays, they came back, and Anne was dressed up as a pylon. She shut down the parking lot, so the cars would not be coming like crazy. And at minus 24 degrees, people were walking and people were cycling. We need hundreds of Fentons, because part of it is infrastructure, but part of it is programs. It's software and hardware. People in London, they put this sticker. Now the business, older people need to go to the restroom more often. So if the stores have this sticker, people over 60 can go into the restroom without having to purchase anything. Or here, a running group in 10 different cities. They got a running group. Older people are very lonely. In the US, the people over 70, 3 out of 4 don't have a family member coming by weekly. So here, what do? They got the runners, and they volunteer 1 day a week or 2 or 3, whatever they want, to stop at an older person and chat for 10 or 15 minutes. This is fantastic, and it's totally doable. This is in Seattle. They came up with an app to say the height of all the walks. Memory Gardens in Portland. This is the Greenland Plus in Singapore. You click the traffic light, and it gives you 50% more time. Outdoor gyms in Beijing, over 2,000 of them, and now they're taking all over the place. I saw some here in Toyama. It's amazing what they're doing all over the city. One of the things the mayor said, hey, Gil, instead of wearing a tie here, put it here. And he sent me a few of those. He said because people with a tie, they will not go out walking into the parks. So let's relax the dress code in Grand Rapids. If you want to wear a tie, fine, but it should not be expected. If women want to wear high heels, fine, but it should not be expected. Part of it is relaxing. That's what Mayor Morris says. And now they're densifying the downtown. So they're making it, they're encouragement zones when it's nicer, better sidewalks, better parks, better public places. This is an elementary school that was turned into older people's home. And like something that is so nice for health. One of these parks is really good for people with Alzheimer and other dementia. Before, people with Alzheimer, people were kind of ashamed, said, oh yeah, my grandfather, so we lock him in so that he won't run away. People don't run away. Here they bring, the family members bring him, and then they go at 8:30 in the morning, then they go to work. They come back at noon to have lunch. If they don't find them, no problem, because they have a bracelet with a GPS, so then they find them. Things like that. So those are the programs that I'm talking about. Melbourne. So when people say cities don't change, Gil, you know, Grand Rapids, it was built around the car. Well, Melbourne, it used to be 30 years ago, it would not have been in the top 300 cities. Now, it's one of the top 5 in quality of life. What have they done? Things that you can do at Grand Rapids. Put in art all over the city, but not for cars at 60 miles an hour, for people at 3 miles an hour. They're planting trees. They didn't have any trees on the streets, and now they got trees all over the place, and the trees are good for health, for everything. Laneways. Last night I was at a placemaking workshop with the Latino community on how to improve a laneway. They had all of these laneways that they were dark and smelly and horrible, and they started working with the community and making them fantastic, these laneways. It's amazing what they have done. Not 1 or 2. 84 laneways. This transformed downtown Melbourne in many, many ways. And actually, the city did a partnership. The city would go, oh, you have a flower shop or you got a restaurant? Open up one here. They say, oh, but it's a laneway. They say, okay, I give you $50,000. So the city was giving the seed money so that the community, the business community, will come out and say something else. You know, they had a river like the one you have going right through the middle of Melbourne, all polluted with factories right there. They got rid of the factories and they created linear parks on both sides. I think it would be so amazing if here in Grand Rapids you had a beautiful linear park along the river without any gaps but total connectivity, and you did some nice bridges, because the reality is that most of the bridges that you have, let me take away the most, all are horrible. And they could be so nice. I mean, at least try to do one. I mean, there is one that you put some lights so it doesn't look as ugly, some rectangles. But you got the river. Well, you know, 100 years ago, all cities were giving their backs to the river, and they used to put their factories because all the garbage and the sewage was going into the river. But that was 100 years ago. Now, the most attractive place in any city are the rivers. I mean, you go to New York. New York has Fifth Avenue right through the middle of Manhattan. Why in the middle? They wanted to be as far away from both rivers as possible. But that was 100 years ago. Now everybody wants to be on the rivers. Look what Melbourne has done, and you can have this or better in Grand Rapids. Why not? What have they done? Imagine all of factories, or have this densified against the river, 4 or 5 stories behind those, much taller. I mean, no one wanted to live downtown Melbourne. Now everybody wants to live. It's great. You know, for example, this is something that the downtown corporation can do. Beautiful street furniture. I said, you charge these people a lot of money? They said, no, more important. We said, we could charge $1,000, but instead of that, we're going to charge only $100. But you got to keep the area clean. And if you see selling drugs or something illegal, you got to tell us. And most important, time. You need to open minimum Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday at 7 a.m. and close not earlier than 8 p.m. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 24 hours. Why 24 hours? Because there's one selling flowers in this block. 2 blocks later, one selling fruits and vegetables. Then someone selling ice cream. They're not going to sell a lot of flowers at 3 a.m. But then they pay very low rent. And the citizens, they're happy walking in the downtown because they know there's lots of lights, there's an alarm, there's a person, there's a telephone. Look, this is at noon. This is at 7 p.m. This is at midnight. And then it becomes a win-win for everybody. I mean, look at this city. It's similar in size to Grand Rapids. They were going to do a transportation plan. Cars, walking, transit, everybody. So they started thinking, they thought of winter, they thought of summer, they thought of people going to work, people going to study. Lots of citizen engagement through internet. Anytime you have more than 5,000 cars, have to be physically separated. At one level for cars, 3 inches higher for bikes, 3 inches higher for pedestrians, or like this. This could be Grand Rapids anywhere. Look at this. They count. When this goes to 0 at midnight. So when I took the photo, 7,803 cyclists had gone by, and places to put air and signage. You know, this is what promoting cycling is. Also, you click coffee shop, and then it says on the map, lockers so that you can leave your bags or your shopping, washrooms so that you don't need to go to a coffee place just because you want to go to the washroom, and then you gotta go again because you had too much coffee. Bicycle parking, indoor bike parking, and then people bike. in the summer, people back in the winter, because it's safe for everybody. There is a physical separation. That is the magic. And in the downtown, some of the streets are pedestrian, and pedestrians are first, then cyclists. So if you got your bike, you leave your bike out, or you walk your bike to the place. And then in the downtown, when you start near the schools, the speed is not 20 miles an hour, it's 0 miles an hour. There are no cars between 7 a.m. and 4 p.m. Only the people that live in front, and they can come out only at 3 miles an hour. And they have ping pong tables, and all. So kids come early and they chat with their friends and so on. So this is creating cities for all people. We gotta keep in mind that the quality of the infrastructure is a symbol of the respect that we have for people. 6, it's about the benefits. This is not about parks or streets or mobility. This is about creating a Grand Rapids that is great for all people. And some people say, but should we promote with the decision makers? Should we tell them, should we focus on the heart or the brain? This is like what's first, the chicken or the egg? I think it's the heart. I think we gotta tell the decision, and the other citizens, the NIMBYs, the people that are against things, let's work on the benefits. If an elected official is really into environment, let's tell him, and we're promoting a park, let's tell him why parks are good for the environment. Park is the means, it's not the end. Or why do we need to save cycling? Cycling is the means, not the end. The end is any of this, whatever is relevant to someone. Once we hit him in the heart, then they ask anybody. They ask an assistant, let's do bikeways all over get me the numbers. And then heart and brain are going to walk happily ever after. Let me give you an example of, you got to have reasons for all of this, for any project. For example, health and wellness. Is this what the future looks like? In Grand Rapids, the issue of obesity is not how people look. It's that it has to do with heart attacks and respiratory problems and anxiety and depression and cancer and osteoporosis. In the U.S., 1 out of 3 people are obese. These are the 35 wealthiest countries in the world. The U.S. is last. I love that the U.S. wins the World Soccer Championship of women. These women are fantastic, but this is not the championship that you want to win. And when people hear my accent, they say, Gil, it's always been like this. No. It's not always been like this. 20 years ago, you didn't have any state with more than 20% obesity. 20 years ago, it's nothing. Well, now, you don't have any state with less than 20%. Actually, now you have 11 with more than 35%. You have places, the obesity in Michigan, the young people, 2 to 4 years old, 13, and then it keeps going up. And then in adults, it's 33%. And it has grown from 1990 to 2018. In just the last 28 years, it has gone from 13% to 33%. Maybe you should say, that's Michigan, but Grand Rapids is different. Now in the next 5 years, we're going to go from 33 to 30. Why not? And you could be the healthiest city in the U.S. Why not? Why does it have to be Boulder, Colorado, or why does it have to be Portland? Have better lunches at school, have gardens all over the city, in all the neighborhoods, have urban gardening everywhere so that people will know that tomatoes don't come out of factories. And activity. Activity is going to be good to prevent premature death and osteoporosis and mental health and diabetes. It's not about doing marathons. It's 60 minutes a day for children, 30 minutes a day for adults, 5 or more days a week. So there's an urgency to increase physical activity. People are thinking, I need a magic pill. No, there is no magic pill. The only way that Grand Rapids is going to be physically active, the only way is if people walk or bike as a normal part of everyday life. There is no other way. There is no city in the world that has gotten people active other than walking or cycling as a normal part of everyday life. People might play tennis twice a week. People might play golf twice a week. But we need people to be active 5 or more days a week. And of course, sustainable mobility and parks are good for physical health, but there is no health without mental health. We got to improve issues like loneliness. Loneliness increases the possibility of dementia by twice, increases the strokes, and so depression is the world leading cause of disability. We got to work on this, and then we need to have Grand Rapids that is green everywhere, because if we have nature, it's going to improve the mood, the cognitive attention. I enjoyed when I was biking in Puerto Rico. I donated 10 days there, and I saw all of this green. But working in Alaska, also in nature, we gotta have nature everywhere, and it's totally doable. So you gotta have in Grand Rapids, and it can be. And so also, if we have green neighborhoods, we're gonna have lower depression and anxiety and stress, That's why it is so important to really have green everywhere, and not just in the summer or fall, but we gotta be close to nature also in the winter time. If we have nature everywhere, at home, in the sidewalk, in the schools, in the places of work. 7, let's work on equity. When I'm talking about equity, I'm not talking about equality. The other day someone did a cartoon that said this is equality. No, some people are starting so far behind that some might need 2 and 3 boxes, others don't need any box. And someone said that's equality, that's equity. Maybe this is reality. But maybe in Grand Rapids you think outside the box and you say it's not about moving boxes, maybe it's taking down the wall. I mean, we're not doing very well. This is the children living in poverty. In the US, 1 out of 5. Maybe in Grand Rapids you should say, I don't care what the US is, we're going to be more like South Korea, 1 out of 16, or more like Denmark, 1 out of 37. I mean, from the point of view of mobility, the people that have a car here, and it's most people, because more than 90% of the trips are done on car, are spending more than $1 or $5 of their income on mobility. It's huge. So some people are asphyxiated financially, and they got 2 cars in front of their house. So it's not only expensive to use a car, it's also expensive when people buy a house. 1/3 of the house is for the car. It doesn't make any sense. The driveway, the garage, if people use public transit and walk and bike, they would be using only 4%. That's why it's so important for the personal income as well as for the community. I mean, when we evaluate cities, we should evaluate cities, how do we treat the most vulnerable people? And the most vulnerable are the children and the elderly. But if in addition of children and elderly, people are poor, we need to evaluate that, or have disabilities, or are from a racial minority or ethnic minority, or are women. This is how we should evaluate. It's not about creating a Grand Rapids that is like a Disney World for wealthy and healthy 20 to 60-year-olds. We got to work on this, and I want everybody to live today as a guardian angel of the gentle majority. Who's the gentle majority? The ones that are not the squeaky wheel. You do the meetings and they don't show up. Children and older adults. So everything you do, think of them. Let me give you one case for each one. Children. What if children in Grand Rapids? You have playability everywhere. We come out of this meeting, we go to the sidewalk, and there are swings. We're waiting for that beautiful bus outside, and there's a small parquet. It's not about money. Let's have creativity. Let's allow people to go a little bit wild and have colors and have uses. We don't even have to ask these children if they are happy. You can see it in their facial expressions. And you might say, oh, nice, because it's fun and games. It's not only fun and games. Children, playing is how children learn. Playing is learning. Playing is how children develop their muscle strength and their sociability and friendship and coordination and cognitive thinking. So we gotta have parks everywhere. And it's something really critical. I mean, it's not very expensive. This is gonna be the future city builders. In Grand Rapids, you should have a goal. Every child should have a park within 1/4 of a mile. Every child. In 4 years. By the way, the good news is that 3 out of 4 do. The bad news is that 1 out of 4 does not. So how are we going to get those parks to people? And if you don't have a park, let's think of what belongs to all of you. The street, the school, the libraries. For example, get the schools and say, that horrible pavement that you call playground, turn it into a park. Why so much green and trees? Because when children play in green, they reduce the attention deficit and hyperactivity. By the way, New York has increased by 24% the playgrounds without buying 1 inch of land, taking advantage of the schools. That's what they're doing in Anchorage in Alaska as well. The schools, having them as community hubs. And if you don't have a school, take over a street. When you look at Grand Rapids from the air, 30% are streets. So let's take over a street. And not only children, also let's think of older adults. You know what, living longer, no longer, much, much longer. Can you think the people that have ever lived to 60 in the history of humanity, half are alive today, half. It's exciting. And people are gardening and eating ice cream and doing things. It's so exciting. In Michigan, the people over 60 is 1 out of 4 people. 1 out of 4. And the population all over is growing. We're going to increase the population over 60 are going to double. Population of 80 are going to quadruple. And people are laughing. People are not thinking of retirement, but about retirement. I think the biggest waste of resource that we have are the older people. Older people have knowledge and have experience. But when they retire, we cross them out as if they had died. When they got 20, 30, 40 years left. They could be teaching English to refugees. They could be tutoring kids in schools. The universities could have all kinds of courses. We really got to work. In Grand Rapids, imagine this. If we had been born 150 years ago, we've been around for 200,000 years. If we had been born 150 years ago, the life expectancy was 39. Today, you more than double the life expectancy in only 150 years. It's amazing. You learn how to survive. But when we got all of these issues of climate change and public health crisis and traffic congestion, so we must learn how to live. And learning how to live, part of it is the built environment. That's why we can improve, and also we gotta work in intergenerationals. I have a big reason to work in intergenerational because last year I had the first grandchild, or my daughter had it. And so working on this, and all of this is completely and it's totally doable, and we gotta work in this direction. And I wanna ask you also to fight ageism. What is ageism? It's discrimination by age. Sometimes we tell someone, oh, don't do this. Why? Because you are a child. Oh, you cannot do that. Why? Because you are old. By the way, childhood and old age are the happiest times in life, not here in the middle. You know, when you are 30, 35, and you're thinking, I'm going to get married or not, or have kids, and how to pay for the home, and how to pay for school, and how to pay for this. And then people say, oh, but the old people, everybody has Alzheimer's. No, less than 10% will. The other 90% have anxiety of Alzheimer's. I forget someone's name and say, oh, I'm getting it. Oh, where are the kids? I'm getting it. Well, the reality is also people with Alzheimer's can be happier and healthier. I mean, ageism is so dumb. Ageism is discrimination against our children, against our parents, against our own future selves. So aging is not really a problem to solve. You know, aging is not a disease to cure. We gotta fight. Aging is living. It's living. That's why we're going to fight ageism. And the last message, obviously, that we got to change. I know that change is hard. That's why we do more of the same. People say, oh, Gil, when you go to Copenhagen, why is it that they bike? They bike because, like the U.S., there was an oil crisis in the 70s, and people started biking. And many children were being killed in Amsterdam. This is Amsterdam. They were doing all of these dyings in Amsterdam. And the papers, and then this is Copenhagen, and they said that's when they built the first protected bikeway. And look what happens when you do protected bikeways with cycling in Copenhagen. That's why they bike. You know, so when you're going to do any change in Grand Rapids, 3 recommendations. First, change is not unanimous. So when people say, oh, there is some concern, they will always be concerned. Second, the general interest must prevail over the particular. And third is when you say no to something. Like you say, oh, we're not going to do a park, or we're not going to do a bikeway. Okay, you're saying yes to more obesity, or yes to more depression, and so on. Those change has consequences. I mean, elections matter. I didn't put the mayor here, your mayor, because there's an election coming by, so I don't want to be engaged. We need citizens to be advocates. We need citizens also activists. I mean, let's think of this. What happened with the high school students in Florida? I mean, whether you are for or against, it's amazing what they have been doing in the change. This was in 2018, last year. This little girl in the middle of nowhere, and now she has become, she invited schools from all over the world 3 months ago to strike on a Friday, and she had over 1,000 schools striking. It's incredible, the kind of things that, and now tomorrow, this Friday, she's going to have millions of people. Basically, she says, I want you to act as if you were in a crisis, as if the house was on fire, because it is. So I just want to end by saying these are not technical issues, these are not financial. It's about policy, not about a political party, about policy, changing. For example, we got to have a big P. We need participation. Grand Rapids, you gotta change as a city and do things different. Be bold. If you compare yourself, I mean, you are better than many cities. If you compare yourself with cities that are worse, in 10 minutes you can do a list of 100. But if you compare with those, you're gonna end up looking like those. No, you're gonna say, okay, let's be bold. What cities are better? Similar size, similar income. Which one is where people are happier and healthier? And which one is the best mobility and the best trees and the best parks? And then do alliances. Alliances like the three-legged stool. One leg are the elected officials at all levels. The other leg is the public sector staff, from transportation and environment and education and health and planning and parks, everybody. And the other is the community, the universities, the business, the activists, the media. How to get all 3 legs working together? What is the glue? Is the sense of urgency. You need to develop your own sense of it. Each city is different. For example, the downtown must be irresistible. And then you develop a shared vision and action. Because if you only have vision and no action, then you're going to become frustrated. You know what needs to be done, but then you don't do it. But with a shared vision and lots of action, you're going to create a vibrant and healthier and happier Grand Rapids. So Grand Rapids, let's do it. Now, thank you very much.